Hello and welcome to Chat with a Doc, a new virtual health series brought to you by 50Forward and Walk with a Doc. I'm Kelsey Mahaffey, the All of Us Project Director for 50Forward, a nonprofit serving older adults located in Nashville, Tennessee. Today's program is made possible by 50Forward, which is a national community engagement partner for the All of Us Research Program. All of Us is a research program from the National Institutes of Health that aims to advance precision medicine. Specifically, All of Us is seeking 1 million people from diverse backgrounds, including older adults, to volunteer and share their health information, helping researchers find better treatments and cures for all of us. Over 725,000 people have enrolled so far, with 80% of those coming from communities that are historically underrepresented in biomedical research. You can learn more about the program, as well as what research studies are happening right now, by visiting our website at joinallofus.org/50forward. Also with me today is my colleague, Keith Richardson, who will introduce today's topic and special guest. Hi, Keith.
Hey, Kelsey, and hello, and a big welcome to all of you tuning in to our Chat with the Doc episode today, featuring the topic, Coping with Grief Over the Holidays. We are so thrilled to welcome Dr. Theresa Wee, all the way from the beautiful state of Hawaii, to lead our conversation today. I'll read a brief bio for Dr. Wee, then we'll jump into the presentation. For those watching on Facebook, please place any questions in the comments section on your screen. For those on Zoom, please place questions in the Q&A feature. We will do our best to address those at the end. Dr. Theresa Wee is a participating pediatrician, wellness expert, and a mother of 4. She has devoted her life to helping others by sharing her expertise as a healthcare professional. She has a strong commitment to improving the health of Hawaii and began her nonprofit organization, Walk with a Doc, Oahu, 8 years ago. She is the author of 2 books and continues to educate families on numerous radio and television spots. Additionally, she lives with her husband and enjoys traveling and spending time with her 5 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Theresa Wee.
Hi, Keith. Thank you. Hi, Kelsey. So, first of all, I just wanted to introduce myself, and I want to take you on this journey. I want to share my journey of grief as we go through the holidays. And, my hope is that we can all maybe honor the grief, maybe even lean into it, and maybe even see what we can learn from it. And I will later in the program share a little bit about my own grief journey. But first of all, I just wanted to talk about the definition of grief. Grief is a natural response to any loss. We feel that emotional suffering when we've lost a loved one, a pet, and even something that you cherish greatly. We as seniors, sometimes even a loss of a job or going into retirement or losing your health, you can lose many things that are not people. And the pain of loss can be just overwhelming and so difficult to understand. These feelings can come and go in waves, and it can be very confusing and difficult for people to really feel. One thing that I learned is grief really disrupts your physical health. It just throws your schedule off, and you are just not yourself. And as a result of everything changing, your eating habits, your sleeping habits, it makes the work of grief even more difficult. And obviously, the more significant the loss, the more intense your grief. I just wanted to briefly go over, there's so much studies about grief. We've been going through grief through time immemorial, but in 1969, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did wonderful pioneer research on grief. And in her book on death and dying, she talked about the 5 stages of grieving: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, even she acknowledged as time went on, you don't have to heal through grief by just, by even going through any of those. In 2004, she said that, each one of us will experience loss in our own way because each of our losses are so individual, just as we are. I wanted to just briefly talk about Dr. Frances Connor, who's a PhD neuroscientist. In 2003, she actually used MRI scans to really study and map out areas in our brain that showed specific areas of grief that lit up. And believe it or not, the areas that lit up were in our reward. And what she found was that, over time, we accumulate so many memory attachments. So she was talking about how grief does take time to rewire our brains, because even though we know that our loved one is gone, we still have that attachment. We're still looking and reaching and yearning for that loved one. And I thought that a good summary of this work was found in Dr. Warden's work in 2009. He summarized the 4 tasks of mourning. First of all, just accepting the reality of the loss and really facing the pain and walking through that pain of grief, making adjustments to live your life without your loved one, but still maintaining that ongoing connection and love to your deceased one. So I wanted to briefly share with you, when I went to undergraduate and medical school, there was someone special. He was like a brother to me, Theresa Wee. I was always trying to fix him up with other people. He was my ride home. We went through medical school, and in our 4th year of medical school, he turned to me and he said, "I think we should go for it." And I thought, should we go for ice cream? He said, "No, I think we should get married." And so I paused for 5 minutes and I said, these are the words he said. I said, "That would be convenient." And so we got married, and we spent 6 years in Columbus, Ohio. I doing my pediatric training at Columbus Children's Hospital, and he did an internal medicine residency. We lived and worked in Ohio, but I had my first child in Ohio, and then I began to feel a pull to go back to Hawaii. And that pull was pretty great, and opportunities came up. And so we moved back to Hawaii. We put up our shingle and we started our practice together. We were in practice for 27 years, and raising our 4 children. I went on to have 4 children. It was very difficult combining career, but you just do it. You raise kids and you continue your career. What happened was that we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary in 2010. And it was the first time we took 2 weeks off, and we actually went abroad. We went back to China to retrace where my grandparents and family had come from. When we returned 10 days later, we were back at work, June 11th, 2010. It was an ordinary morning. And at lunch, my husband turned to me and he said, "I don't feel well." And I said, "Oh, it's 12 noon. Let me go and heat up our lunch." I went to microwave our lunch, and when I returned a few minutes later, I returned and he was dead. I mean, it happened in an instant. I called 911. They took him to the emergency room, but within an hour, they worked frantically on him. Everyone at the hospital knew him, but they couldn't revive him, and he was dead. And it was, I had gone through deaths with my pet, my grandparents, my parents. But when your spouse dies, it's so different. It's like half of my life was gone. I took one day off on Monday to make funeral arrangements, but the next day I had to be at work to figure out what to do with him. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to share with you some of the lessons that I learned. And again, going through all of this, I just highlighted a few things that I wanted to share with you. Grief is normal, and we're all going to experience it. As a physician, I know it's not a curable disease, but we're all going to go through grief because we take a chance on love. It's just being a human being. Grief is a lifelong journey. It's been 13 years, but even the holidays are always a difficult time for me. What surprised me was that grief is very patient. We think that maybe we'll get over it in a few months or even a year or 2 years, but it often takes much longer. One of the things that was surprising to me was even soon after his grief, I would suddenly find myself thinking, wow, I'm not thinking about him 24/7, but it's okay. One of the things that I really put up with is, people always feel that when they come to visit you, they have to say something to make you feel better. But, and sometimes they say really stupid things, but, you have to have grace. Grief is not something we talk about. And sometimes I want to just tell people, it's okay for you to just be silent and we can just sit here and hold my hand, and that would be enough, but give other people grace as well. As a physician, I always feel like, okay, I have to do the work of grief. I've got to do it right. I got to do it. I have to have this plan, but I just realized that no, I don't have to expect things to be in this order. I can just take time out and say, okay, the holidays are hard. I may reach out to other people to help me get through this. And finally, one of the greatest helps that I accidentally stumbled into was a grief support group. I did not even know what a grief support group was. And I do believe it is through the grace of God that I found it, through a friend. And I went there maybe 2 months after Steve had passed away. But I wanted to share with you my insight on grief support. Next slide, please. When I entered grief support, I peeked into the window and I saw all these people talking, and there was all of this food there, and they were laughing. So I slowly turned around to walk away, but the facilitator came out and said, "Are you looking for grief support?" And I said, "I guess I am." And so anyway, I was kind of reeled into the grief support, and it was like all of a sudden, it was like a warm embrace, like all these people. I mean, there were maybe only about 12 of us, but every single person had experienced loss. And I suddenly felt in this safe environment. And I just suddenly started to just blurt everything out and shared it with others. Even though we had a professional facilitator, I think it was really the support of others that really, really helped to support me and encourage me to share everything I was feeling with them. So it's been 13 years since I lost my husband, but believe it or not, I still attend, and we call ourselves wounded warriors because in a selfish way, whenever I go to the monthly grief support groups and there's someone who has a fresh loss, I just feel like every time I share my story and give them a little bit of encouragement, I think it helps me to heal even more each time. So it's that journey of walking beside someone. I tell people it's as if you are to go to a foreign country. You've never been to a country before. You don't know the language, the culture, the landscape. But if I were to go with someone who's been there before, who kind of knows a little bit about that country, wouldn't it feel so much better? You wouldn't feel so alone. You can actually, this person can walk beside you and help you navigate through unknown territory. And that's what grief support to me is just walking beside one another. And just as another note, grief support is all confidential. It's not therapy session. So again, if someone feels that their grief journey is not on track and shutting down, I do recommend that you see your primary care physician. Next slide, please. So let's talk about children. I'm a pediatrician, and I have been in practice for 40 years. And as I see children who have lost parents or grandparents, I think it's so important that we all understand that children are at different stages of development. So children and teens will express their feelings of grief a little differently from adults, and it depends on their development and age. But I think the most important thing is, just knowing that if you can share your own feelings with them, then they in turn will feel more likely to share their feelings. So I always tell parents and grandparents, turn off your phone, set aside time, look at them eye to eye, and really ask the hard question. What are you feeling? Tell me what you're thinking. Sometimes they'll say nothing, which is fine, but they're always curious, and, be prepared for questions. When you do answer their questions, don't beat around the bush. They're ready to have clear and honest answers. At the time of the funeral, during the time of mourning, tell children what to expect. Explain what the events will be happening in terms of the funeral, the burial. And most important of all, continue to be open and willing to talk about their feelings, even years after the death of the loved one, because they need to know, they need to express your feelings just as you need to express your feelings. So we need to not be ashamed to have this conversation. We need to really show one another that it's okay to talk about this. Next slide, please. Yeah. So these were my top 5 myths. there are some people I've encountered who kind of want to put the pain away, because really grief is the pain. But what I found over time is when people ignore the pain, it somehow will make it worse as it resurfaces elsewhere. Myth number 2, in many families, especially for the boys, you got to be strong, don't cry, don't be soft. But what I learned in grief support was take every opportunity to cry. Crying does not mean that you're weak, but instead it's showing that you have the courage to show your feelings. I don't know if you know this, but I learned that the tears of pain are very different from the tears of grief. So there's something very healing about crying and grief. Myth number 3, sometimes you don't feel like crying, but that doesn't lessen your loss. Those who may not feel like crying at the time, they feel the pain just as deeply as someone, crying out a storm. So don't prejudge people on that. Myth number 4, this was a really big one. People told me, it's been a year. And I thought, where did people get a year from? Why don't we move on? Definitely, there is no timeline for grieving. And again, as I mentioned, I think grief is a lifelong journey. Myth number 5. I now sometimes laugh. I used to say moving on with your life after your loss, but the term I like to use now is moving forward with your life and not forgetting your loss. Your foundation has been destroyed. When we lose someone, we learn from them, we rebuild our new identity, and now we're moving forward with the rich memories of them, and they are a part of us, and they define who we are now. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that I think some articles have shown, and this is from a PhD. His name is Dr. Kenneth Doka, D-O-K-A. He's a death and dying expert who wrote over 100 published articles on death, grief, and dying. But he talked about grief during the holidays using the 3 C's, which I'll go over briefly. Number 1, during the holidays, we all have choices. You may have traditionally done something a certain way, but if you don't feel like it, it's okay to say no. And then also, you can also choose to honor and mark your loss with new traditions. Number 2, communicate. When you make certain choices that are different or that are not part of the tradition, make sure you communicate this with your family and loved ones. Let them know ahead of time what to expect. Everyone has different ways of dealing with their grief, and maybe for you, it's not the holiday party, but perhaps you might want to do something just with a good friend. So again, the main thing is to let others know that you are planning a certain event for yourself. And finally, compromise. There is no right or wrong way. And, if you want to do one party and then step away from the tradition, that is your choice. the holidays just magnify our grief. So, we want to serve our needs, not necessarily the needs of others. So perhaps looking at the 3 C's can give you a guideline on how to plan the next few weeks. Next slide. I think this is the big one. Ways to cope. Number one, there's so many, we're all so busy, especially during the holidays, but especially if this is the first holiday without your loved one, just try not to set high expectations. Remember to say it's okay. Surround yourself with people who love and support you, even though you feel like you want to isolate. Choose certain people to be around you so that you can talk to them if needed. Number 3, make time to just say, you know what, I'm feeling it. I feel the sadness and anger. In other words, it's okay to grieve and cry and take that time out. Number 4 is so important. We get so caught up with all the emotions and our mental health, but it's important to do self-care. And that was something I quickly forgot, but, just reminding yourself to eat healthy. Try to get a sleep routine that's fairly consistent. Just sit outside on the porch and get 10 minutes of sunshine, or just take a walk in nature. Just somehow reconnect. One of the things that I found really very helpful was, even 5 minutes a day, just thinking of even one thing I was grateful for, not concentrating constantly on the loss. And again, as I mentioned, consider making a new tradition or ritual that would honor your loved one. And finally, I learned in this in grief support, when I first lost my husband, all I could think about, I was 55 years old, and I just thought, what am I going to do for the next 30 years without him? But when I went to grief support, they told me, Theresa, just think about how you're going to get through the next 5 minutes. I said, oh, just an itty bitty. And then I would say, okay, how do I get through the next 10 minutes? And so forth. And then we take one day at a time. But I found that to be so much more manageable. Next slide, please. So anyway, I continue my journey, and next slide. I just wanted to read this by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. You will heal and rebuild yourself around the loss, but you will be whole again, and you will never be the same, nor should you be, nor would you want to be. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. So again, 8 years ago, I wanted to reach out and help a wider community, not just my patients. I do Walk with a Doc every Saturday for the past 8 years. Next slide. And I've even branched out. We have other activities throughout the year. And next slide. Picture of my husband. This picture was taken a year before his death. And what we once enjoyed and loved, we can never lose. For all that we love deeply becomes a part of us. Helen Keller. Next slide, please. I wanted to tell you that I was not looking for another husband, but I have remarried, and we will be celebrating our 11th anniversary. Next slide. Final thoughts. When we grieve, we will all lose someone, but understanding death has really become something where it helps me to live. I shake off fear. I try to live a life of no regrets, and I wake up each day grateful to be alive. Next slide. So the call to action today is, just think about our own mortality, because that will bring more life into our days. And just don't be afraid to have conversations with your mom or dad or your children or grandchildren, because right now we live in a world with so much loss, and people out there need to have conversations like this. Next slide. And I want to just wish all of you peace and happiness this holiday season. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Wee. We definitely appreciate your presentation and your slide and just your transparency. You definitely brought a lot home and brought in a lot of memories, even with my family as well. And thank you for the informative presentation on ways to cope with grief during this season. And I know we have some questions from the audience, so let's get those. And if you have any questions for Dr. Wee, please use the Q&A feature on the Zoom or comment section on Facebook.
Yeah, Dr. Wee, thank you so much. This is just lovely. I love all of your personal insights and your photographs that you put into this. And I found myself smiling. We're sitting here talking about grief and death and dying, and I could just see so much joy through your presentation. And so I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody who is watching, those of you especially that submitted questions in advance. We want to start with those, and then we've got a couple that are coming through live as well. So a couple pre-submitted questions, Dr. Wee, I'm going to read these for you. Somebody asks, how or what are the best ways to manage the stress caused by anguish and pain in different situations so that they don't affect your health?
One of the answers that I have is it's called mindfulness. So, your brain can only concentrate on one thing. But if we can do mindful breathing or mindful walking, we use all our senses, and we put all those troubles aside for 5 minutes a day. I think, just concentrating on your breath, that will release the stress and the anxiety, because now you're concentrating on your body, the sound, the feeling, tactile sensation. So I tell people, go for a walk, do some deep breathing. That mindfulness will really help you. And when we are mindful, we can also put aside the pain, but it helps us to really appreciate the peace and joy that we can have.
Yeah, I love that. Just breathing, that is so important. That is a great answer. Okay, and this is a big one, I know, especially for people that are aging, but best ways to cope with grief and loneliness when almost all of your relatives are deceased. We hear that from a lot of our 50Forward friends in our community, that there's nobody left for them. So yeah, do you have any advice about that one?
I tell people, just take a walk. If you see someone walking their dog, just smile at them. If you see the postman, just smile. I think it's a give and take. Sometimes when I see a cashier who's having a bad day, I'll just give them a smile. I think we can do these small little things to not only help us, but help others. I also think that if we must have friends. We can always FaceTime. I love FaceTime. My youngest lives in New York for 12 years, so we FaceTime. I think we have such wonderful technology now. So there's really no excuse. I think we can all find ways to reach out to others.
Thank you. And what about sleeping? Here's somebody is asking about evenings when it's time to go to sleep and they just can't fall asleep with thoughts and grief and loneliness. Is there any advice you have about sleeping?
I go back to my mindfulness breathing. we talk about that abdominal breathing, just put a little small pillow or stuffed animal on your belly. And like I said, if you put aside the loss that you have suffered and just slowly let your mind drift into concentrating on your breathing and let your whole body relax. A lot of times I'll do that, and after 3 or 4 or 5 times, I wake up and it's the morning. So really practice, I go back to this often because, we didn't grow up with it. I know sometimes in some of the elementary schools, they actually practice deep breathing. So this mindfulness breathing is something new for a lot of us older folks, but I really think it's a very good tool to help you not only relax during the day, but also in the evening at night.
Thank you. Thank you. And what about this one? We have a viewer that asks, excuse me for a minute, I dropped my question. How do I talk about my loss with others without falling apart physically and emotionally?
I would put it this way. Let it all out. Let it happen. If you're crying, that's part of the healing process. You can warn your friend ahead of time because obviously this is someone who will accept you in any way. You can say, I may most likely will break down and cry, but I need to just maybe talk to someone about it. And I think that person will understand. As I mentioned, you want to take every opportunity to cry. Crying is so healing. And again, we see it in the contents of the grief tears. So when you're crying, I think you are healing. When you're breaking down, you are healing. We all need to walk through that firestorm, but we will emerge. This is a very difficult time, but we together, we will get through this. And to be human, it's to be loved, to love others, but that means we're going to lose people. But, I'd rather take that chance on love because that's what makes our life so rich.
Okay. Very beautiful answer. Thank you. Okay, one more pre-submitted question here. This is an important one. I think you addressed this briefly in your slides, but when should somebody seek medical attention due to overwhelming grief?
I think the first 1 or 2 months, it's really difficult. Grief and depression are not the same. But if you are having, if you continue to persevere in the 3rd or 4th or 5th month, and you don't feel like you're making any movement forward, if you're starting to feel thoughts of unworthiness, or just thoughts of your lower self-esteem, or I think it may be time to go and seek professional help. So people who are grieving, really don't lose their self-esteem. They just feel that loss, and sometimes they might say, "Oh, I wish I could be with that person." A lot of the discussion will talk about that person, but when the discussion begins to go towards, okay, I'm feeling, not worthy to live, when it starts to be concentrated on yourself and you just feel stuck in your grief journey, and it's been about 2 or 3 or 4 months or longer, then it's time. And even if it's not time, if you think you need professional help, seek professional help. But I hope through this talk that people understand that grief support groups are so wonderful. Even 13 years after my husband has passed, I try to attend as many monthly meetings as I can.
And I love that. And I love that you're still going and
Yeah.
you're paying it forward and helping those that are probably newer on their grief journey. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's just beautiful to listen to you talk about this. Okay.
I think we have a question, Kelsey, in the chat box. One last one. This is from Michael, Dr. Wee. He says, what do you say or do when people can't move forward? Their life is consumed by the loss of a loved one. They identify by their loss.
I think as human beings, we all have choices. I'm hoping that this talk will make people know that grief is painful because we have loved. But I don't think I can force anyone to do anything, but I would tell that person that if you're feeling stuck, I really think that they need to seek medical help. And I mean, for me, after my loss, I mean, I felt stuck. I felt my whole identity was gone because I had known my husband for so long. But I knew that physically he was no longer here with me. So I made the choice to redefine who I was, to gather up all my strength and say, why not me? Instead of asking the question, why me all the time? He was such a great doctor. He was such a great dad. I had to say, why not me? And what can I do with what life has thrown at me? Because life is going to throw all of us curveballs. And I want to make my life meaningful for whatever time God gives me, because I want to honor my husband who passed. And I believe that when I see him up in heaven, he's going to tell me, you know what? I'm proud of what you did. So again, I don't know what to say to that person. If that person really needs help, we just have to encourage them to get the help. But again, that choice is always there for us to try to not persevere on the loss, but now to rebuild our foundation as a new individual based on the love and memories and everything that person gave us, and then move forward with that person in our heart. And I think that's what we need to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Well, I do believe our time is up for today, but Dr. Wee, once again, thank you so much for being with us and chatting with us about this very important topic.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I agree. I could spend another hour with you, Dr. Wee. I would love for you to come back and do another topic with us. It's just
Would love to.
beautiful. I feel lighter talking about grief. Just having you on screen with us. And I think that's a gift. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
And I
having me.
also want to say a special thank you to Walk with a Doc, who has been partnering with us on this new virtual health series, Chat with a Doc. And a huge thanks to those of you that joined us from across the country or that are watching live on Facebook. We look forward to hopefully seeing you at our next episode of Chat with a Doc in the spring. And remember, if you would like to learn more about or even join the All of Us Research Program, please be sure and visit our website at joinallofus.org/50forward, and you can see how you can become 1 in a million with the All of Us Research Program. So we're going to leave you with a short PSA about the program, and we wish each of you a safe and happy holiday season. Thanks so much.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.